We're glad to have you back. Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company Limited, Mr. Bismarck Riwani, says there are indications that the victory of Donald Trump in the United States presidential election could have significant implications for Nigeria's financial system and external economic position. In his recently released Lagos Business School Executive Breakfast presentation for the month of November, Mr. Riwani and his team stated that the Economist Intelligence Unit projecting that Trump's win may strengthen the US dollar and lead to higher interest rates. When Nigeria faces the possibility of rising cost of external borrowings and debt servicing, energy markets are trying to digest what a Trump presidency means for oil and gas prices, while the bulk of Trump policies are expected to be bearish for prices. The key upsides risk is how the future president deals with Iran. Well, let's talk to energy policy analyst, publisher, BizTellers.com. He joins us from the United States of America, Mr. Adeyemi Adeoye. Good afternoon, Mr. Adeoye. It's really good to have you.
Yeah, thank you, Tolu. Good afternoon or good morning from here. Good afternoon to Nigerians. And as usual, it's a pleasure to be here again.
I must thank you so much. I know how it can be, the timing and all of that. We do really appreciate that. Let's start with the implication of this Trump's presidency on the entire financial system, or should I just say on trade relations. What is running through you before we dovetail to the oil market, which many expect that a lot of movements will happen with regards to prices?
Yes, very true. First off, I think it's a relief that the elections have come and gone. It was sort of very, it was very topical here, and every other issue had to take a break for the, political discourse in the last couple of months, and it was actually, a little bit stressful. That is what we wake up to every day. You walk into the stores, you go around offices, that is the conversation in hushed tones and everything. And there were fears. Yeah, there were fears, and the fears were simply based along the issues in discourse. The American election is all about the economy. It was just a decision made by the economy, the current state of the economy. And a little part of it, I think second to that would be immigration, but majorly Americans were all about the economy. Personally, for most of us Nigerians, we were, and Africans alike, we were, a large number of us were hopeful for the Democratic Party because some of the policies, look a little bit friendly to Africans here. And while the incoming president is is not a boogeyman, he's a gentleman in his own right. Maybe his style of communication might come out as brash, depending on who is analyzing it. The major thing is a lot of people take this communication and push it in a very negative direction. And this have adverse effect on immigrants, including Africans. And that is the concern of a lot of Nigerians. Even if you are here and you're doing well, you have children, you have relatives, and who go to school, who hear the whole thing, who face bullying in school, who go through all of that. So that is a concern for a lot of families, immigrant families, especially legal immigrant families, that is the concern. So a lot of people might not understand why Nigerians were a little bit skeptical about the Conservative Party policies. It's simply because at the end of the day, it's not all about gas and groceries. It's about you being able to have a sense of dignity in the society where you operate. So, and that is not 100%, in the last time when Mr. Trump was president. It wasn't 100% for immigrant families across the United States. And when the illegal immigrants are being hounded, some legal immigrants too, would have probably a backlash of that, some legal immigrants will be pulled over unnecessarily just to, identify themselves and do all of those things that they were not used to before. So it was a little bit, heated at the time, and that was a concern. But under the Democratic administration, a lot of that has cooled off, and that has totally disappeared, especially as it concerns legal immigrants, because Africans come here legally. Africans don't, come out to the United States illegally. I'm talking a large variety, of Africans don't come out here illegally. So basically, we are hopeful that the new administration of Mr. Trump would, be beneficial to legal immigrants, because he mentioned that during the campaign, that his concerns were illegal immigrants. And so some of us are like, okay, if he comes in this time, it will be favorable to immigrants. Now, looking at Africa as economic bloc, I think it will be good, especially when you look at our energy concerns. I think his administration will be okay, speaking economically in energy terms, because Mr. Trump is very high on reducing the U.S. regulation, global regulation of the United States. It focuses more on the internal, on growing the economy of the United States, and that is his major focus. And if you look at his comments along, the economy, the U.S. economy, it has always been America first, America first. How he's going to grow the economy internally. He's not really bothered about blocks that are not competing, economic competitors, or contemporaries of the United States. Africa is not competing with the United States. Africa is not an economic, contemporary of the United States. So he's not bothered about Africa, so to speak. I think his major focus would be, economies like China, that are very, competitive, as well as Western Europe. So those will be his major focus. And with regards to the economy, the energy policies, is not going to impose, the climate change policies on Africa.
I actually wanted to come in there while you talk about that. Yeah. If you can hear me, I'm looking at trade uncertainty and trade relations, how these factors might negatively impact energy prices. If this happens, what's your look, or what's your understanding, or what do you think would happen in the entire energy market? Many believe that he could, embark on some or institute some policies that might have a major shake in the entire market, particularly at this time where everyone is trying to ramp up production.
So fact of the matter is Nigeria has been campaigning in all the major global energy conferences across the world there. Africa should be allowed to develop the continent with its mineral deposits.
Yes.
That has been the focus of President Tinubu. He mentioned that when he was at the United Nations, and the major conferences we've had here in the United States, the CERAWeek conference, the Gas Tech conference, the Offshore Technology conference. So this has been Nigeria's policy position, to allow Africa develop with its, God-given mineral resources. This is not a time that Africa wants to talk about cutting, production because of, greenhouse emissions. Because truly, Africa's, is only doing about 3.8% of global gas emission, compared to countries like China, which accounts for about 23%, or even the United States itself, which accounts for about 19%. So Africa as a whole, Africa as a region, is very low, at a little low, at just below 4% of global greenhouse emissions. So what does this mean? This means that our mineral resources, our natural resources, is being underutilized in Africa. What we probably do majorly is export them to across the world. So we can now use this energy to develop, because our gas emission, our footprint is very low. And Trump, during his last administration, did not really bother about Africa, and he's not concerned about the climate change. He even said it was a hoax, that this thing is not real, and he's in full support, for instance, of fracking, So the shale fracking, which we know has environmental, issues, Trump is in full support of it because, of course, it's going to grow the U.S. Oil production, significantly. In fact, global oil production should grow up with about 10%, if shale fracking if it comes to its full potential, it should add about 10% to the global crude oil supply. And I mean, as you know, Tolu, currently the United States is the largest producer of crude oil, and if fracking is enabled to its full capacity, of course, that tells us that it would also further increase the production level of the United States. So I think it is an opportunity. Mr. Trump's presidency is an opportunity for African leaders to be very strategic. Yeah, he's not going to impose regulations on them. He's not going to be seeking, because from all we have seen, we can take it that he will not want to impose regulations with regards to gas emissions or climate change and all of that. He would not. He has never been in support of that. So we don't see him holding Africans or African countries to ransom because they are producing or they are utilizing their God-given mineral resources. So it will be a huge opportunity for African countries to tap into their mineral resources and use it for the development of the continent, because this thing is going away. Yeah, I mean, it's going away. Everybody is talking about renewable energy now. So at the pace it has been spoken about, in the next, say, 20 years, it will be higher than what has been discussed now. We're talking about EVs all over the world now. Even the trains, even the commercial buses, a lot of them are now running on EV. Even commercial trucks, like the trailers and tractors, we have them now. Some of them now, they're producing a lot of EV for those. So it is the current state of play would go away. So it is only important for African leaders to catch in on this opportunity and use the mineral resources they have for the development of their region, because a time is coming when the regulation will come in full force. So the next 4 years would see lower regulations, especially from the United States, and that will be advantageous to Nigeria, to Africa as a region, especially when we're looking at energy, the entire energy value chain. That will be advantageous to us. However, we can only be hopeful that these leaders in Africa would use the opportunity accordingly for developmental purposes, because that is supposed to be the expectations, at least in the next 4 years. Because we don't know how it's going to play back in 4 years from today. So before that time, we hope that the leaders will do the needful. However, I also want to add quickly that it's with regards to the state of the economy in Africa, African leaders can also use the opportunity of the Trump administration to reposition, in terms of the trade deficit, in terms of the economic balance between the United States and Africa. We have a lot of opportunity in there. There are so much investments going on in energy across board. And the United States and, of course, China, they're taking the lead in this. We can also seize in on that opportunity to have representatives meeting with the new administration on these clear economic purposes. And there are lots of Nigerians here, lots of professionals, lots of African professionals who are willing to, bridge the gap in terms of, coming back home if they see a clear-cut policy, economic policy that will help, develop the region. There are lots of professionals that are willing to, to be a part of that developmental project. And if the government of Africa come and engage on behalf of, its citizens in diaspora, the government here would also be able to see that there's a workable partnership, that these developmental purposes would also be good for America. So these are the way that the Trump administration, sees things. It's very direct. He's a very direct gentleman. He's not very heavy on policy. So I think African leaders should be strategic and take that opportunity to engage him from a simplistic point of view He's not a very heavy person on technicalities and policies and all of that. So, but we just have to come correct, and we have to be very, very, straightforward with what the plans are, and in a way that it can connect with the incoming president.
I'd like to touch on this for 2 minutes. We have just 2 minutes to wrap up. It's an interesting conversation, I must say, Adeyemi, and you're making real sense of this. Nigerians' non-alignment with all of these international conflicts, such as the likes of Ukraine and Gaza, and many say that could also have an impact. Do you think so?
Really, Nigeria has always had a very soft foreign policy, basically. And we are always very careful. We try to be, especially on the international scene. But the point of the matter is these issues affect the whole world, and Nigeria should definitely take a stand. Taking a stand doesn't mean, taking supporting any of the warring factions, but we can take a stand with regards to the killings going on. Nigeria can take a stand. I mean, when women and children is involved, definitely every country that aspires to lead, or every country that is leading a region, should have a clear-cut, policy on this is the way we're going, this is the way we don't want to go. And the United Nations is very clear on this. So it's only simplistic for Nigeria to lend its voice to where the United Nations is going with this, because the United Nations have condemned several times, the killing of children, women and children in this region, especially Ukraine and also in the Gaza region. So these are areas where Nigeria can also announce its leadership of Africa. However, I think this should not be done in isolation. Instead of Nigeria speaking as a country, I would rather see African Union coming to have a position. Yeah, instead of Nigeria have a policy and South Africa is having a different policy. I would rather we have it at a regional level. Maybe the African Union coming together to have a position, then we'll push it forward from there. I think that would give us a better stance on the international scene.
Brilliant conversation. Energy policy analyst, publisher, basetellers.com, Mr. Adeyemi Adeoye, live for us from the United States of America. Thank you so much. Do have a productive week, and we'll hope to see you again on the show very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Tolu. Thank you for having me.
All right.